All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's not a good Miami Business School response. When I say good morning, that's much better. Thank you. Thank you. So it's wonderful to see you all here. Thanks for joining us on the second of 3 full days of celebration for the many anniversaries we're acknowledging this season. I want to first of all thank some of our distinguished guests for being with us. Uh, President Frenk, I'll introduce in a moment. He will later on introduce Stuart Miller, who is with us, a great benefactor of the university and former chairman of the Board of Trustees of the university. We also have Josh Friedman, who is the head of advancement and alumni relations for the entire university. We have Linda Steckley, who is a member of our board of overseers at the business school, and we have other distinguished guests whom I'm going to introduce a little bit later on. But the first order of business is to introduce Julio. President Frenk, it's terrific to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the leadership of President Frenk of this university, of our university, and in particular, I'd just like to highlight from my own personal experience with President Frenk, two characteristics that I think are just incredibly important to university leadership these days. And the first is that, and not surprisingly really, but President Frenk is a doctor. And, fundamentally, he may have had many important posts in his life, but I think fundamentally he is a doctor and someone who has all of the humanitarian instincts that we associate with people in that profession. And those humanitarian instincts are exceptionally important in the administration of a university environment, a community of scholars and learners. That's such an important element of success in shaping a university where everybody feels valued and can collaborate effectively. And the second thing that I think is very important about President Frenk is that his perspective is really a global perspective. He is, as many of you know, an expert in global public health, and these days it's really important in a university environment for individuals who are leading our universities to have a global point of view. Perhaps no more time in a living memory has it been more important to bring that perspective to bear on our deliberations and on shaping the course of not only what we do daily, but what we do from a strategic point of view for the long-term good of our students and the long-term good of humanity in general. So please join me in welcoming Julio to the stage, a humanitarian and a global leader.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the warm welcome. It's really great to be here. This is a very special time. Homecoming is really the best part of the year when we greet our alumni back to the campus as they reconnect with their alma mater. It's full of activities. I hope you're going to take part in many of them. And I'm really delighted to spend this time with you. Of course, I'd like to start by congratulating the MBA program for its 70th anniversary. That's an amazing milestone. And it's sort of a prelude to the milestone we will be celebrating in just 7 short years, which is the first 100th anniversary, the first centennial of the University of Miami. And I want to underscore it's only the first of many to come. And as we approach that centennial with that milestone in view, we've developed a strategic plan for the university we want to build. And homecoming is a good time to talk about this because on the one hand, everyone likes to reminisce about their times as students, which is typically a very important part in our lives. but it also provides the foundation to look into the future. And I'd like to spend just a few minutes to set the stage. You will be hearing next from Dean Quelch about how this whole thing applies to the business school. But just to set a little bit of the stage by talking a little bit about the main elements of the roadmap to our new future, to our new century, which is the strategic plan for the University of Miami towards 2025. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to give you really the executive summary. We have produced a small brochure, which is more a teaser that tries to get your appetite whetted so that you, and directs you to a website where we have much more detail on the roadmap. But this process, which has proceeded basically since I started with my listening exercise and then went through my inauguration, and then a number of consultative processes with students, with alumni, with faculty, with staff, with members of our community, and of course with our board of trustees, has just been recently approved last May by our board. And the roadmap has 5 strategic priorities, just 5. 4 of them refer to the core of the academic life of the university. Let me just enumerate them and say a little bit about how the Miami Business School plays such a central role in them. The first one we call a preeminent academic health system. As you know, UHealth, the health system, and the Miller School of Medicine are a major component of our university. Well, the Miami Business School has a major role here because it is home to a preeminent center for health sector management and policy and department. And given that healthcare is the largest sector of the economy, one cannot conceive a modern business school that is not proficient in understanding this major part of our economic life. So the school really plays a crucial role in understanding and providing elements that guide policy in the healthcare arena. Our second strategic priority, we call education for life. Now, education for life has 2 meanings. First, it means education that lasts your entire life. As we transform the architecture of universities from places, institutions where typically young people spend a defined period of their lives and then graduate, are out there in what we call the real world, into a much more open architecture, because those students who are graduated are going into the most dynamic labor market in human history. And we need to switch from being providers of educational services and educational experiences for a limited period of time to being the lifelong providers of those educational services, striving to meet the evolving educational needs of people, starting with our alums, but also beyond our alums, as they face this dynamic labor market. So as advances in automation and artificial intelligence change the nature of work, we need to be ready to provide the development of new competencies as we see people evolving in their own careers, as a part of their own successful careers, evolving into roles of new responsibilities and leadership. They need to know that there's always an educational home they can come back to develop those competencies that they acquire as they evolve in their careers. The second meaning of education for life is education that prepares you for life, that allows you to lead a rewarding life, a meaningful life, a life that allows you to fulfill whatever dreams you have. And that means educating our students so that they can get not just their first job, but develop a rewarding career. And it means preparing our students so that they are constructive citizens of their communities. Again, here the Miami Business School is really crucial. The school has been the pioneer in executive education, and we want to extend that to the entire university. And that's why Dean Quelch, in addition to being the Dean of the Miami Business School, holds a university-wide role as Vice Provost for executive education. As we do that, we need to really lead the educational revolution that's currently unfolding, the new technologies that are there, simulation, like our simulation hospital that we have here at the School of Nursing, high quality, engaging online education. And very soon, something we will be unveiling next week, our partnership with Magic Leap, one of the cutting edge companies in computing and information technology, founded by a double alum of this university, Ronnie Abowitz. And we will be announcing that the first partnership of that company, which is developing the concept of spatial computing, and we don't have time today to speak about that, and probably I'm not the right person to do that, but it's really an exciting new frontier with endless applications in education. And that will be unveiled on November the 12th. So that's our second priority, education for life. And as I just illustrated, the Miami Business School is central to that. The third strategic priority is called mission-driven research. And this is the idea that as a comprehensive research university, we do not believe that our job is done when we publish a paper. Important as that is, and the faculty members know it is very important. You don't get promoted if you don't publish in the top journals. But we want to do that and take that the next step, translating our knowledge into solutions. And again, this is the heart of a business school. It's finding solutions to the world's most pressing problems. And then fourth is what our fourth strategic priority we call hemispheric leadership. It's just really leveraging our geographic endowment, the privilege of being located in one of the most cosmopolitan cities, right at the crossroads of the Americas, also a city on the Atlantic seaboard. So we're hemispheric and global. We're pan-hemispheric. We span the entire globe with a particular emphasis on the Western Hemisphere, what we call the New World, for a good reason. And of course, the Quelch has established the Latin American and Caribbean Advisory Board, which is allowing us to really exercise that hemispheric leadership. So those are the four priorities in what I would call our core academic mission. But you know, other than the one on hemispheric leadership, you would find education, research, and many universities healthcare as part of any strategic plan. What I think is unique in our plan is that we added a fifth priority. And this was, you know, in very intense dialogue with our trustees. And we call that administrative excellence, which forms what we call the platform for success. The idea that we cannot realize any of our highest aspirations if we, as a complex organization, don't operate in an exemplary way, taking the concept of excellence not just to our academic work, but to everything we do. And that platform for success, in turn, has a number of components. First, operational efficiency, including their environmental stewardship, being good stewards of the environment in which we operate. Second, financial sustainability, making sure we realize all the possible and maximize our source of revenue, and strengthening our endowment as the key to develop a real prospect for being around in perpetuity. And thirdly, cultural transformation, developing a culture of belonging where everyone in this university is valued and feels valued. Everyone has the trust of everyone else to carry out their work in an exemplary fashion, but are also accountable to everybody else. So that component is not seen in many strategic plans in universities, and it is a core part. And needless to say, here in our business school, the business school is highly relevant to that, because this is exactly what we teach here. And you know, this is an opportunity to leverage your own research, your own teaching, to improve the way our university as a business operates. And so, you know, I like to say, let's take a spoonful of our own medicine. If we're teaching all of this to people who are going to run other organizations, let's apply that to our own internal operations. So my message here is we have an exciting plan. The 100th anniversary is important. Universities are among the most enduring institutions in the world. 75 of the oldest 100 institutions in the Western world are universities. They provide this sense of continuity, which we see in homecoming. Generations after generations building up places where new generations come and profit from the legacy built for those who by those who came before them. That's what gives meaning to the sense of civilization, and universities are core to that. So we're building the university for the university for our second century, but also for our third, our fourth, and our many, many centuries, as we now contemplate the prospect of being around in perpetuity, like many other universities have really defined the sense of what is the human experience. It's a privilege to be here, and with that, I think we'll take questions afterwards so we can keep moving. And Dean Quelch will now address a state of the school presentation on how this strategic plan for our university translates into the life of one of its most dynamic and vibrant components, which is the Miami Business School. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Julio, for laying out the roadmap so well. I want to start, as I always do, with if we could have the next slide, please. I want to start with just a statement to remind us what the mission of the Miami Business School is. I think it's very important to read that set of words. To develop innovative ideas and principled leaders that transform global business and society. So you have here the innovative ideas, the mission-driven research, the principled leaders, not just leaders, but principled leaders, whom we as educators seek to develop during their time with us and beyond. That transform global business, not local business, not national business, but global business and society, not just business, but business and society. It's very important to understand the nuances that go into the development and crafting of these mission statements that look mundane, but actually capture a tremendous amount of the value system of the institution. We have as our vision to be in the top 25 business schools in the world by 2025, and I hope that all of you who are alumni will be proud of that as an objective, as a goal, and I believe that we are well on our way already. President Frenk has already spoken of the 5 elements in the roadmap, so I'll not belabor this slide except to say that all of us here, I think, if you haven't seen the document that he mentioned, the summary document, we have a couple of hundred outside. Please take one and learn more about the roadmap and the process that went into crafting it. What I want to do is to report next on a process that we went through during the summer of this year with a group of our faculty members to develop a set of priorities around thought leadership that go beyond the traditional departments. You'll all be familiar with the accounting department, the finance department, the marketing department. What we wanted to do in this age of interdisciplinarity, where we all know that the cutting edge ideas really occur at the boundaries of existing disciplines, not within existing disciplines. So what we have developed over the summer is 5 areas where we believe in each case many of our departments can contribute, and where in addition to that there are other parts of the university where our departments can learn from and contribute to. So just take behavioral decision making as one example. We have experts in our faculty in behavioral finance, in behavioral economics. We have consumer behavior experts in our marketing department. We have human behavior and organization behavior experts in our management department. And what we're doing is facilitating these people talking together and developing new ideas and new research outputs from bringing together their common disciplinary training, but multiple different applications being in the same room with each other is going to result in some very exciting new ideas. Business analytics and technology. We have one of the most outstanding business analytics groups in the nation. In fact, our Master of Science in Business Analytics is now the highest enrollment program of any program at Miami Business School. We are well on the way to being very current in terms of keeping up with the needs of the marketplace in this area. Global operations and global strategy obviously speaks to our mission, and this has long been a key part of our school's offering. We have many faculty who have good international experience. We have 30 nationalities represented on our faculty, and around about a third of our faculty are bilingual. We have a very, very good global footprint and promise for even more success. Governance and leadership. This is not just the management department. We have people in our accounting department who are very strong in the area of compensation systems for CEOs, for example. Governance and leadership bridge across many different functional areas within a business school. And then finally, I want to mention sustainable business, because we're in the process of getting final faculty approvals for a new MS in sustainable business, which will launch in August of next year. This is going to be, by the way, the first STEM certified master's degree in sustainable business in the United States. Why is that possible here? Because we are doing this in collaboration with the Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, building on all of the science that they have, and then layering on top of that the management and leadership competencies that we're able to deliver here. And that will result in someone coming out of this program who will be well equipped to go into leading Global 500 organizations as juniors on the path to becoming the chief sustainability officers of those organizations. So in addition to these 5 interdisciplinary clusters, we're also mindful of the fact that we live in South Florida and we have industry capability and specialisms in this region that we want to leverage and address as well. We have, in the last 6 months, worked very hard to reboot entrepreneurship, and we're doing that in conjunction with the engineering school. And the Magic Leap initiative, which the President spoke about, is hugely important to furthering our ambitions for the University of Miami broadly and Miami Business School in particular to become much more important in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Florida. Secondly, we have a strong tradition, as the President mentioned, in the area of health management. Not many business schools have their own Department of Health Management and Policy. We do. That is a great asset, and it has been an asset for many years, which is one reason why we're able to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Executive MBA in Healthcare Management this year. That's one of the oldest degrees of that genre in the United States. And then finally, real estate, which is subsumed under our finance department, but again, we have a very strong presence both through our alumni but also through core faculty who teach excellent cutting-edge material on real estate investment and development. So these are areas where we think we can make a difference and solve some of the major problems that the President referred to. What about some recent statistics relating to our progress? Far from the MBA being dead, you may have read about that in the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times. Our graduate program enrollments were up 12% this year. We're in a very healthy position. It's not just a numbers game. It's also important to note that the yield on our offers also rose 6 percentage points this year. That means that 49% of the people who received offers from us chose to come to Miami Business School as opposed to 43% the previous year. We also have increasing interest among our undergraduate population in taking majors in business. And that statistic, something that we don't market aggressively within the university at all, but that statistic has naturally been increasing and increased 9% this year. You know, 6 or 7 months ago, we did not have a corporate partner or corporate associate program. We started from scratch around about 6 or 7 months ago. We now have 49 companies in our corporate partnership program. You can see them listed on a plaque that's outside one of the doors to Stuart Auditorium. These companies are contributing a minimum of $10,000 and in some cases up to $100,000 a year to our school. We of course provide them with an extraordinary array of benefits, including multiple lunches with the dean. But you know, despite that offering, the numbers are still growing. We've also done exceptionally well thanks to the efforts of our faculty, which is led now by, I just want to introduce Professor Henrik Kronqvist. If you would stand, Henrik. Henrik is the Vice Dean for Faculty and Research. Many of you as alumni will remember the great Anuj Mehrotra, who previously held that position and recently left to become the Dean of George Washington University Business School in Washington, D.C. But Henrik has now taken over. He's a professor in finance, has taken over, and has been very instrumental in helping us to recruit some outstanding faculty this past year who are coming to us from the likes of Wharton, Columbia, London Business School, Indiana, Ohio State. In other words, very, very strong schools, very strong universities. And this is, of course, of huge importance to the development of our school against the vision of 25 by 25. We have over 45,000 alumni throughout the world. That's a major asset. And you as alumni own the brand. Henrik and I and other members of the faculty who did not graduate from Miami Business School, we are the temporary custodians, the temporary stewards of the brand. But you as alumni and as students own the brand. And we just count tremendously on your guidance and your support, both in terms of mentoring existing students, in terms of coming to classes to share your wisdom, in terms of contributing annually to our success. In many, many ways, our alumni are the most important stakeholders in our community. The brand of Miami Business School is on your CVs for your entire life, and you have to support and invest in the brand for your own sake as well as that of the community at large. The three things that are guiding our strategy every day are operational excellence, in sympathy with the President's administrative excellence mandate. We are also very much focused on further enhancing our graduate enrollments. I want to underscore how important it is for our alumni to send good candidates to us every year. All of you have the ability to meet people in their 20s who would be great candidates for our school. Please remember to advocate for Miami Business School. We have outstanding programs here. What we need is more outstanding students to take advantage of them. And then finally, as President Frenk mentioned, we're making great strides in executive education. I didn't refer to this in my earlier bullet point comments, but we have secured some major new executive education contracts with Bacardi, with HBO, with Telemundo, and others in the works. This is going to be a very important, source of cash flow to our school to enable us to invest in the innovation and research that's so critical to being a leading institution. Now, let me just highlight a few people who have been very important to the development of the events of today and the next few days. So I didn't introduce him earlier, but Paul Chagru, please stand, Paul, one of the really one of the great deans in the history of the school, and just so pleased to count him as a counselor and a friend. And he has been the chair of the 70th anniversary planning committee. We also have a number of other people who've been very instrumental. I'm not sure if they're in the room with us or planning the coffee break outside, but Blanca Ripoll, if you meet her or any of her team, Blanca, yes, okay. Blanca, you have been here for 33 years serving our school. That's an extraordinary record of continuity and passion for our institution, and it's just fantastic to have someone with this dedication working on our behalf. Thank you very much, Blanca. Want to also acknowledge Roni Shear, who within the development function has been Ronnie has really, as Director of Alumni and Corporate Engagement, been primarily responsible for these events, working with our new Executive Director of Alumni Relations and Development, Casey Supple. Is Casey here? Please stand, Casey. Casey just arrived here from Columbia University in New York. We're very pleased to have her in this leadership role. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what about these two at the bottom? You know, what are they doing there? So I'm a great believer in leveraging alumni. Some of you in the room may not have been leveraged yet, but you know that will be an honor and privilege that you can look forward to. But a couple of our alumni here are Chris Nolte. I'm not sure if Chris is here today or if he's coming later on, I think. But Chris is one of our alums who is an entrepreneur who, with another alum, has founded Perler Specialty Roasters in the coffee arena. And all of the coffee that we are serving today has been generously donated by Perler and by Chris and his colleague, our alumni. And then, believe it or not, we even have a couple of 70th anniversary beers. Okay, we have to toast to the anniversary at some point during the day, so I thought around about 6 months ago, why wouldn't it be possible for us to have our own beer? So I discovered one of our alums. Of course, I'm not supposed to talk to anyone who has a JD from the University of Miami because they outrank someone who has a degree from the business school. But I surreptitiously found Carlos, who runs a microbrewery, Tank Brewing Company. Some of you may be familiar with it. And so Carlos has kindly donated some kegs of brew for us. I'm not quite sure what the percentage alcohol content is, but since we're the business school and not the law school, it's probably pretty high. So you'll be enjoying some beer from Carlos later on, so very important to acknowledge these folks. So let me just say in conclusion that there are these three anniversaries that we're celebrating today. We're so delighted to have you here. We have 4 events: yesterday's event, today, tomorrow, and the cookout this evening. Across the entire series of events, we have 525 alumni attending this full series of events. This is really a remarkable turnout. I think it's really unprecedented, and I'm really so grateful to all of you as alumni for supporting the school. So thank you very much for being here. And now I'd like to invite President Frenk back up to the stage. I think we have time for 2 or 3 questions for the President, and then we'll get on with the rest of the program.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. The endowment, first it's important to understand what is the endowment for. The endowment is not a goal in itself. The endowment is a means to an end. It's to be able to support our work. And the reason why universities have endured so long and why they play this role of continuity in our civilization is because of endowments. When I arrived here 3 years ago, one part of my diagnosis, John said I'm a doctor, so I tried to diagnose the situation, was that the university really, relative to its size and its prominence, was under-endowed financially. It's very well endowed in terms of intellectual capital, and certainly it has the best geographic location in the world. But financially, it is under-endowed. So one part of the strategic plan is to grow the endowment. Now, this year that's ending, we crossed the very nice milestone of $1 billion in our endowment. That's great, but it is the lowest among all of our peers if you measure it in endowment per student or the proportion of operating costs that are covered by the endowment. So we gotta grow the endowment, and it is one of the strategic goals. The goal, actually, to be concrete, is to a 50% growth to $1.5 billion, $500 million from now to 2025. It is a very, very ambitious goal, but I'm confident we're gonna do it. Now, not in this business school where we have very sophisticated experts in finance, but it is common that donors will misconstrue endowment as overhead. So what the strategy is, what I call endowment with a human face. And what we're doing is emphasizing 2 of the initiatives to invest in our people. The first one is called 100 Talents, and that is 100 new endowed positions, faculty positions, from now to the 100th anniversary of the university. We're on track. We just received the gift for the 31st, so we're 31 down. That means we still have 69 to go, so if anyone here wants to leave a legacy and memorialize their generosity by creating a professorship, this is a great time to do it. So our goal is 100 endowed positions. That's one side of our people here. The other are students, of course. And so the other big initiative, which we call Enabling Educational Excellence, is to grow the proportion of student aid that comes from endowed scholarships. Right now, most of our student aid is really tuition discounts, which hurts our bottom line. But we want to be and continue to attract the best students, the most meritorious students, irrespective of their capacity to pay for their education. And the only way we can do that is if we expand scholarships, and the only way to make that sustainable is through endowed scholarships. So endowment with the human face means help us invest in our faculty. Great faculty attract great students, help us invest in the scholarships in our students. That's the endowment piece.
Thank you. Another couple of questions, please.
President, thank you for your leadership. I really got energized just to hear you speaking in the very beginning. And I'm curious to know, University of Miami being a leading research university and being in Miami, which is the entry port from Latin America, I'm curious to know what is going to, in the future, what is University of Miami going to do to help the development of Latin American countries, Do you have specific alliances with different universities? I know you do, but what's coming ahead? How are we, or University of Miami, going to help the region in Latin America to improve and become even more developed?
Another great question. So that priority I mentioned as hemispheric leadership translated into a very specific hemispheric strategy. That has 5 pillars, and I'm just going to mention them. The first one is scholarship about the hemisphere, understanding the hemisphere. It's going, by the way, by hemisphere, I understand the entire hemisphere, from Canada to the southern tip of South America. It includes the United States. The United States, if you think not of Latin American countries, but Latin American populations, has the 3rd largest Latin American population. So only Brazil and Mexico. It's tied with Colombia. But so that also includes that part of Latin America that lives here. So it's the entire hemisphere, and it also includes, and I have to stress, the English and French speaking and Dutch speaking, for that matter, Caribbean. The Caribbean is a very important part for a variety of reasons, and certainly here in Miami. So it's the whole thing. And then it's the rest of the world. It's not that we're excluding, but we're trying also to understand how the rest of the world interacts. You cannot understand Latin America and the Caribbean today if you don't think about China, with a growing presence in business, in finance, in credit, etc. So the scholarship of the hemisphere is the first piece. Here we have today at the university the Miami Institute for Advanced Studies of the Americas and the Institute for Advanced Studies of Cuba. Because we're in Miami, Cuba deserves its own institute. We're about to recruit a head of that, which I'm very excited about. Second pillar is educational exchange. And we're building something, and we just launched this year, what we call the Hemispheric University Consortium. Small number of the top universities in Latin America and the Caribbean, and in the United States, us, and in Canada, coming together to try to create common educational experience as a bridge to understanding, very much modeled after the Erasmus project in Europe, which has been a huge part of peace and stability in Europe in the post-World War II era. That consortium also helps the third pillar, which is the research. That's where we already have a lot. There's an incredible amount. Our faculty are very, very engaged, and I could give you lots of very interesting examples. The Rosenstiel School doing the top research on the corals and on issues of climate change throughout the hemisphere, just to give one example. The fourth is innovation, and one of our initiatives is called Hemispheric Innovation Hub. We feel that Miami can be really the hub for innovation, not just for the Southeast United States, but indeed for the entire Latin America and the Caribbean, and there's a lot of programs. The Miami Herald just ran a story about this particular point. Emerge Americas, which has now become one of the leading tech conferences held here in Miami, launched by Manny Medina, and we are partners in that, just illustrates the huge potential there. And if you read The Economist about a month ago, the cover story talking about how Silicon Valley is now become a plateau rather than a valley, explicitly mentions a study saying that the Miami-Fort Lauderdale region leads the nation in the number of startups and entrepreneurial activity. So this emphasis on entrepreneurship that Dean Quelch just mentioned is absolutely critical for the future of the school and the future of the region. And then the last one is healthcare. We have a huge potential. We already receive a lot of patients, but we want to make that strategic and really partner and help develop capabilities with partners in Latin America and the Caribbean. So those are the components of the hemispheric strategy.
Let's take one final question, and then President Frenk has to leave for another obligation during the homecoming festivities. I want to call on Jeff Rowan here, who is the president of the Graduate Business Student Association at our school.
Thank you, President Frenk. Like I said, I'm a second year in the full-time program here for the MBA, and I just want to thank you for coming. Thanks to Dean for having us. My question is, how can the students be more involved, and what is your plan for the students in continuing to grow our global brand, as well as how can they be more involved in the events that affect our faculty, our staff, and our alumni?
It's a great question. I mean, the students are the heart of everything. My mantra here is students first. We exist to provide the best education and the best educational experience, because it's not just what you learn, but how you learn, how you integrate into the community. And that's why the roadmap on that strategic priority called Education for Life has a number of sub-initiatives. One of them is leading the education revolution. That is, what I spoke a little bit about, really becoming leaders in all the new technologies that are out there. And we already have many examples of that. We don't have time to go through them. This school is a key component of that part of the strategy. The other one, which we call Enabling Educational Excellence, I mentioned, is to really grow the amount of scholarships by our centennial. It is to be able to attract the best, the most meritorious students. And then, as part of Education for Life, we really hope to expand the entire spectrum of a person's career. This is called homecoming, because we think of university as students as our educational home. But I was telling the students who graduated last May, yes, this is your home, but don't think that you leased this home for, your 4 years of undergraduate, or your 2 years of your MBA, or your 4 years of your PhD. You didn't lease this home, you own this home. This is your home, your educational home for life. And that, again, is a key part. Lastly, with our undergraduates, you will see a lot of construction. We are building what I believe strongly will be the top residential education facilities in the country. We no longer call them dormitories, because you don't just go to sleep there. It's a key part of living, learning in this campus, and that will open in 2020, for the academic year 2020. It's part of a 10-year development plan that will also include renovating the towers around Lake Osceola, and it's going to turn Lake Osceola into the core, what's in other places called the quadrant. But this is going to be I think the only university I know where the quadrant is actually a lake, a body of water. It's an aquatic quadrant, if you can pronounce that. And I think that's just good. Already we have beautiful campus, but it's enriching the educational experience through a superb education, superbly delivered, and a fabulous educational experience with whatever financial need is required to attract the best and brightest students. I think that's the secret sauce for success when it comes to students. I value student engagement very much, and students have been a key part in formulating the roadmap, and we are hoping that as students they continue to accompany the implementation, and certainly once they graduate as alumni.
So I want to please join me in thanking President Frenk for being here. So President Frenk will now introduce Stuart Miller, our first distinguished keynote speaker.
Thank you. Homecoming for the president is a circuit with many rings, and I still need to go to the next ring in my circuit. But I would not pass for anything in life the opportunity to introduce Stuart Miller. I was very pleased. Is this working? Yes. I was very pleased to see that he's our first distinguished speaker in what I see is a fabulous program. So it really gives me an enormous pleasure to introduce Stuart Miller. Stuart Miller is very well known as one of the most innovative, dynamic business leaders who really has led the growth and diversification of a crucial corporation, not just in this part of the country, but in the entire country. He's the executive chairman and member of the board of directors of Lennar Corporation, and served as the CEO from 1997 to 2018 to this year. Lennar's merger with Cal Atlantic Homes this year created the nation's largest home builder. And not only is he an accomplished innovator, entrepreneur, business leader, he is one of the most valued leaders of our community. And certainly in this university, he really represents a lineage of outstanding service to the University of Miami. Like his father before him, Stuart served as chair of the board of the University of Miami Board of Trustees. And I'm particularly thrilled that he was the chairman that actually hired me. So I can't be more thankful. But I have to tell you that going through the search process, getting to meet Stuart, about whom everyone had warned me before that first interview, and then coming here and really, really having him as my guide as I was coming into this university, about which I had read a lot and I knew a little bit, but I started with 100 days of listening. And Stuart was amazing. I had meetings with 5,000 people, and Stuart was there in every one, more than 40 meetings. He has a day job. He was doing that while he was growing Lennar, while he was having this strategic vision to have the largest home builder in the country. And yet, his devotion of being there in every single one of those meetings and providing orientation, and he really was the best partner I could have hoped for as I came here. Then he, of course, presided over my inauguration in January of 2016, gave me the Presidential Medal. So I am deeply, deeply thankful. But through him, of course, I've gotten to meet and learn about truly a legendary family of Miami. Because together with his late parents, Leonard and Sue, and his siblings, Leslie and Jeffrey, really the Miller family has an amazing legacy of philanthropy and leadership in this community. We're very especially proud in this university that the name of the Miller family is etched in the very sinews that join and strengthen the university. Of course, the Leonard M. Miller School of Medicine. Very proud of that naming gift, which has transformed our medical school. The Sue and Leonard Miller Center for Contemporary Judaic Studies. And most recently, the Lennar Foundation Medical Center, really a spectacular facility that brings you health and the future of healthcare here to our Coral Gables campus, the first major facility. And if you haven't seen it, just go take a look. This is the medicine of the future. And our own Dean Quelch, just a couple of weeks ago, was recently appointed into the Leonard M. Miller University Chair. It's our first of what we're calling university professorships for leaders, academic leaders, distinguished academics like John Quelch, who are appointed on more than one part of the university. And we took that chair that honors the enormous legacy of Leonard Miller and of the Miller family to honor Dean Quelch and launch this idea of interdisciplinary chairs. He himself is a very distinguished student. He got his undergraduate degree from Harvard University, and then we're very proud to say he's also an alum because his law degree comes from our Miami Law School, which, as you just heard, outranks business school. So we all salute when we see him. And to top everything up, he's the proud father of two additional Canes. So really a Cane family round and round. So please join me in welcoming an outstanding leader, a great friend, shaper of this university, Stuart Miller, who I'm sure is going to deliver a brilliant speech because he is absolutely one of the best public speakers I have ever met. Thank you very much for being here.
There is absolutely no chance that I will live up to that introduction. So I want to apologize in advance. So let me say this. First of all, to Dean Quelch and to Julio, congratulations, 70 years. It's an exciting time, 70, 40, 20. We have some celebrations here, and in just 7 years, we'll be celebrating the 100th for our university overall. And these are exciting times, and thank you for having me participate in milestones. Milestones are important. They're an important time to reflect. They're an important time to pivot. And while I want to say congratulations on the moment to reflect on milestones and the great things that have been accomplished, the tremendous foundations that have been laid by the likes of Dean Shagru and many others across the university platform, I want to talk a little bit today about the pivot side of milestones, the opportunity to think ahead and to recognize that what milestones do for us is they enable us to think backwards on the many things that we've accomplished, and also to think aspirationally about the opportunity to make it to our next 70th and what it will take to get to that next milestone. Because these are the pressing questions of today. And these are the questions that I want to address just a little bit using my business, my industry, as a proxy for some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that stand in front of all organizations, whether they be academic or whether they be business. And in today's world, the world of innovation, the world of change and technology challenges us in some interesting and different ways. So, let's wake up, let's spend a moment, let's share some thinking. I've got a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of thought-provoking discussion, and I want to get started here. So let's start here.
Oh my gosh, would you look at this fish tank? I mean, look at all this space. I can swim over here, down here.
Ruh-roh.
Have you outgrown your home? You can trade in your car, and you can upgrade your phone. It's about time. You can trade up your home.
Hey, buddy, here's the new castle I got you.
I gotta trade up.
Or this.
Guys, I need more room here.
You can trade in your car, and you can upgrade your phone. It's about time. You can trade up your home.
Now that's more like it.
All right, so you guys like dogs better than fish. Is that what I'm getting? Do you know that there is no program to trade in your home? You can trade in your car. It's simple, it's frictionless. You can trade in your phone, and you're challenged to do it quite regularly. But there really is no program to trade in your home, and that's the state of the world today. But we can aspire, we can think, we can dream, and imagine something different. We can imagine a world where we can evolve our business by using thoughts, technologies, the evolution of today's world to get to a different place. You know, the important thing to recognize, is that our world is changing, and if we don't imagine, think, dream, and aspire, we can be left behind. There are plenty of examples. Anybody remember Blockbuster? Ubiquitous Blockbuster. On every corner you could find a Blockbuster, and families would almost make it a family opportunity to go out and choose the movies that they would watch. And they would wait to go to the store and bring it home and then have to bring it back. But somebody made it easier. Netflix came along, and Blockbuster was left standing in the background. I remember we could find Blockbuster anywhere. Today, if you want to go to Blockbuster, you're going to have to go to Portland, Oregon, because that's where the last one is standing. And before that, the second to last one was in Alaska. Evolve or die. Kodak. We used to take pictures, and excitedly we would drag our film out of camera and bring it to our local drugstore or to the film store before that. And we would wait generally about a week to get our photographs. Not anymore. Like all of you, I'm not patient enough to get yesterday's photographs from Halloween. These are my twin grandchildren celebrating their first Halloween. And all the way from California, I've already got the pictures of my other 3 grandchildren celebrating yesterday's Halloween as well. Evolve or die. Kodak developed the technology that ultimately put it under. Evolve or die, the nature of the world that we are in. The world is changing, and the expectations of our customers, all of our customers, whether we're in a university or we're in the outside world, are changing. The Ubers of the world are changing the way, and the yellow cab medallion holders were left behind. And in the residential world, the hotel industry has been all but disrupted, not really disrupted, but affected by the effects of Airbnb. I think about Bitcoin a lot. I think about Bitcoin because so many are believers and so many are dismissive. And the discussion around Bitcoin became so topical because of this. Because Bitcoin went from very little in value to quite a lot in value, back to very little in value or less in value. And it was the financial roller coaster that caught and captured the attention of everybody. But what was missed was the fact that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain have the potential to be such disruptive forces that they can potentially disrupt governments, economies, currencies, the way that we trade, the way that we do business. And underneath all the buzz are the disruptive waves that Bitcoin is bringing to us. The other big one that I think about is a company called DeepMind. Most people don't know that DeepMind is a subsidiary of Google. It sits in the background, and it is a company where they have developed an application that taught itself to play chess. It taught itself to play chess and to become good at chess and to become a grandmaster at chess and ultimately to beat all the computers that beat the grandmasters at chess. And some might say, wow, that's impressive. No. The impressive part is it did it from soup to nuts, from beginner to grandmaster in 24 hours. Now that should scare you. That should scare you right into change. And that's exactly how I feel. Because it's not change that is so impressive, so impactful. It's the rate of change that is changing so quickly. The rate at which things are introduced, adopted, and brought into the fabric of the influences that we have to deal with in business, in academia, in every walk of life. And that rate of change is changing even ever quicker. That means that the call for all of us is to get into the momentum and to swim with the sharks and to become a part of this evolutionary world that is changing so quickly. Within the home building world, the fact that we can't trade in a home as you trade in your car or phone is a call to action. Because I know that if I don't adopt or adapt or evolve, I will find myself as an outlier. Our company will be an outlier. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the changes, some of the things that we see in the housing world, some of the challenges and some of the opportunities, and how we're kind of approaching them. And So I want to talk about the dynamics of home building and how we're changing and evolving and thinking about our future. Because the problem that we confront is if our founding fathers were to show up today, they would look at the home building industry and say, oh, this is like a couple of warm slippers. Nothing's changed here. And in a changing world, that should be a concern, and it is. Now, change through technology, change through the evolution of the world is ever complicated by the basic economics that we live in that are also changing, evolving, and migrating the way that we have to think. So even while we are called on to be technologically more advanced, we also have to think about the market that we're in. And I just want to take a minute because home building has become topical all over again. Some people have watched some of the home building stocks over the past couple of weeks, and they've been plummeting. And what has also changed is the nature of the economic environment in which we live. The economic downturn of 2007 and 8 begat a recovery cycle that was very different from all prior recovery cycles for home building. And what really happened is there was a constrained mortgage market, and as the market started to recover, prices started going up, but volumes didn't go up quite as much, or as they normally would. And prices began a march up while interest rates remained flat. But as we look at the last couple of years, interest rates have started to migrate north and up, and more recently have started to migrate even faster. And that creates another problem. Not just that we have to deal with our customers' expectations, we have to deal with the basic economic factors of affordability. High prices with rising interest rates for our customers means that their monthly payment is taking a double whammy. A 6% increase in price plus a 50 basis point interest rate means that prices have in effect gone up 2 times 6% or 12%, and that is sticker shock. And that means that while we're working to evolve and change, the economic environment is shifting at the same time underneath our feet. And while the recovery has given us basically pent-up demand because our production cycle has not been normal during that time, it still means that we have to balance the economic notions of affordability and pent-up demand. So driving our overall business is the necessity to find a way to become ever more affordable because price and interest rates are working against us, introduce the new technologies that people need and people want, and to build a business that is sustainable and growing forward. You think you've got a 3-ring circus. We've got a real dandy in our business. So let's talk about some of the things that we're doing to think about some of these issues, because in our business, not dissimilar from the business school, we are not quite 70 years, but we are a 65-year-old business. We're supposed to make, if we keep the trains running on time and focus on our business the way we need to, we're supposed to make $2 billion after tax next year. That's a big, lofty goal. We are a corporate hub with 5 regions and 38 divisions dispersed across the country. And this business is changing and evolving, and we have to introduce, through change management techniques, new ideas across this rather large platform as we grow through economic change as well. So,
the future is here.
What happened?
The future is here. Lennar's home of the future.
Lights on. Cool.
A home that listens and responds.
As you wish.
A home that protects.
Pizza! Your pizza's Mom, here! The pizza's here!
Even when you're away.
I'm using my phone to set my security system at home.
Voice-activated home automation only by Lennar, Florida's largest home builder. A home that saves you time.
Dial the office.
A home that saves you money.
Our utility bills were never this low.
Never?
A home you control with one word.
Good night.
If you're not living in Lennar's home of the future, you're living in the past. See this Saturday's Tampa Tribune home section for Lennar.
So for those of you who are not old enough, that's William Shatner. He was from a show called Star Trek. We started the innovation process 25, 30 years ago, and that was Lennar's home of the future. Do you know what we learned from that? It was voice-activated home automation, and we learned that Lennar's home of the future was still the home of the future. It was a painful lesson of learning, of trial and error. It was a lesson that we were ahead in our ideas and our dreams of the enabled technologies that could actually work. And in many ways, that's the problem with innovation. We can imagine where we'd like to be, but actually getting there is filled with trial and error, and often more error than trial along the way. My argument is never, ever, ever stop the trials, embrace the errors, incorporate them. They are your friends and your toolbox, and they bring you to the very next place. So Lennar's evolution is that today we've dedicated an entire floor of our company to nothing but evolution, innovation, and thinking about how to incorporate technologies into the way that we build our company going forward. We think about all components of our business. The home in the future is not just about what's in the home, it's all of the functions around the home. So let me just walk through a few of them. Right now, you know, we think about home automation as connected technologies, voice activation, turning on the lights, and all of the other things. But I got to tell you, what was missing was the foundation, the underlayment that enables those technologies to work seamlessly. What you don't see is what's often more important than what you do. And so we have instituted a Wi-Fi certification, which basically enables distribution of digital technology through the home, from wall to wall, from floor to ceiling, no dead spots, and you don't find that in existing homes today. Because in existing homes today, you have something that looks like this.
That's it. All right. Nice to meet you, Mr. Flanagan.
Right? And if we're good at it and actually get that kind of foundation in place, we can go back and talk to our friend William Shatner and show him something like this.
Technology has changed the way we live our lives, the way we travel, the way we learn, and the way we connect. But homes have been left in the past. It's time to reimagine where we live. It's time to wake up your home.
Alexa, turn on Good Morning.
Wake up, The Connected Home by Lennar, the world's first Wi-Fi certified home design with activation and support by Amazon. A home controlled by the sound of your voice, where everything's included and every room's connected.
Alexa, turn on Good Night.
Now, if you really want a home that works like that, you better ask the question, is my home Wi-Fi certified? Because we need that wall-to-wall and floor-to-ceiling connection. And that's the home of the future. Building blocks from foundation to ultimate execution is what makes it happen. One step at a time, trial and error along the way. Next area is affordability. So it's not just the inclusions in the home, but it's the way that we actually build the home that will redefine the home of the future. It starts with architecture. Architecture today, or historically, has been hand-drawn on a piece of paper, dimensions, and hopefully proper connection because the math is right. It's flawed, has to be corrected in the field. We've migrated to CAD aided design, computer aided design, and we're migrating again to Reddit-driven BIM architecture, building information management architecture that will enable and ultimately inform the ability to translate architecture to industrial environments where components of the home can be pre-manufactured instead of site-built. Right now today, the way we build most of our homes is lumber is dropped. We call it loose lumber dropped on site. A plan is taken, lumber is cut, it is assembled. It is a difficult system, and it takes hundreds and hundreds of person hours to build the home and to do it within about a 15-day time cycle. Today's technologies in architecture are starting to inform a factory-driven pre-cut lumber bundle with each piece of lumber labeled and assembled on site almost like a puzzle. That's great. It takes the labor cost and cuts it in half. And then the next level is to actually pre-cut and assemble wall systems, ultimately embedded with mechanicals in a factory and driven to and assembled on site as pre-panels. Those opportunities, again, will drive labor costs down by another 50%. And in a labor-constrained market where it's ever harder and more expensive to bring labor to each individual site, this will enable the industry to start to re-rationalize affordability in a market, in a world where affordable housing, workforce housing is in ever short supply. Technology will enable us to drive forward. Next, convenience. The next computer or technology-aided evolution is the way customers find their homes. Now, each element of our business is under consideration. It used to be traditional marketing. You'd put an ad in the newspaper. We would put an ad in the newspaper, and hopefully you would stumble on that ad as you read the news. In today's world, we're rethinking that as well and looking at digital avenues to go out to you and find you. We know that if somebody's going to buy a first-time home, the best indicator, the best place for us to look for someone who wants to buy a first-time home is find people who are looking for wedding dresses and baby cribs, right? Okay? It seems simple. Digital technology enables us to look for you while you're looking for your wedding dress and baby crib, right? And so we think about these things and recast the way that we do our marketing. Oops. We recast the way that we do our marketing. Digital platform.
This is Lennar News Network.
We are standing on the edge of a cliff, faced with a clear choice: evolve or die. difficult decisions will have to be made. Some divisions are still clinging to traditional media, hoping it will provide them success. But that is purely fool's gold. At the same time, shortages in land and labor are upon us. Margins will face pressure and possible erosion. The time to act is now.
I hope you notice we have a serious situation. But don't worry about that. We have the number games! The purpose of the games is to drive behavior, leading to clear and convincing bottom-line results. We are on a march to drive down customer acquisition costs. While there are forces out there that will affect our business, like shortages in land and labor, participation in the number games can help offset these pressures. The competitive edge lies in digital marketing. The number games will help you optimize your digital strategy, increasing quality traffic to both the website and the Welcome Home Centers. This leads to higher sales conversion rates and overall revenue. While traditional marketing is basic and irrelevant, digital prowess requires skill and creativity. And if we all master this together, we will strengthen our competitive edge. It's all about lowering customer acquisition costs. May the odds be ever in your favor.
What we can measure, we can change.
So we can change the way you find your home, and in doing so, we can bring down our costs. We can affect affordability again, and we can use digital technologies to do that. It's also about how you sell your old home. Can we get to that place where you can trade in your home just like you do a car and a phone? We think so. And so you look at the competitive landscape today for realtors, that landscape is evolving to change the way that the friction in home ownership, changing, trading, selling your home, is evolving within the industry overall. We've developed a program, and we're just at the beginnings of it, and it's hard work, where you can trade in your home using a technology company that we work with called Open Door, that will actually give you an automated offer on your home and actually purchase at that price within 3 days. Here's how that looks.
One of the happiest days of your life is the day you leave your landlord behind and enter your first home. As you move in and make it your own, you're going to have kids, and they're going to grow. Now it's time to move up and into a bigger and better home. But first, you must sell your home. No problem, right? Well, if this is what comes to mind when you think of selling your home, you've probably never sold your home before.
The realtor said we need to keep this place looking like a model home at all times in case any buyers come by.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Oh, what happened to the toilet?
You mean the one that doesn't flush?
Oh! Maybe I shouldn't have made nachos last night.
There is always that one insane, but slightly tempting offer.
Oh my God, we have a deal. So, they said they'd buy your home today, but they want you to pay all of your closing costs. They want you to repaint the living room because they hate the color, and they also want your dog.
If you don't time it right, you could end up living with the in-laws for months.
I have rooms set up for the children and separate rooms for my 2 grown-ups.
So why go through this? The reality is people have to move, but they no longer have to move like this. We have a better way to buy. Lennar's new home trade-up program can be done online. Get an immediate offer at an agreed-upon price for your current home. Pick out your new dream home from Lennar. We'll schedule the closings at the same time and even pay for our preferred movers to move you. Now, you can have included home automation, green technology, the rooms you need, the space you want, the style you've craved. You can trade in your car and you can upgrade your phone. It's about time you can trade up your home. It's simply a better way to buy. Because the American dream is alive. We just think you deserve to dream a little bigger.
Right? Technology can help us change if we get into the flow of change. And the last area I'll just highlight is also the way that we transact. There's nothing more miserable than applying for a mortgage. It's the most invasive, obnoxious process that was ever invented by people and government. We think that over the next 5 years, every element of the financial services business will be fully digitized, from the mortgage to the title business to the escrow services to the way that you get home insurance. And this is what we've been working on, are the elements, the companies that actually turn yesterday's nightmare of getting a mortgage and title insurance policy and escrow closing services and turning it into a program, a neatly knit program that is frictionless and maybe even a little bit fun.
Buying a home is the American dream, but then there's mortgages. The paperwork, the constant trips to the lending office. It's a tedious process, and it can honestly be very frustrating.
But not if I can get pre-qualified in the time it takes to make this smoothie. Or if I can talk to my loan officer at any time, like during morning yoga.
Because I can be available to chat 7 days a week via text or phone.
Or if I can have my parents' help from over 1,000 miles away. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Because with the new Eagle Digital Mortgage, you can ditch all the paperwork. The app allows you to connect your bank statements, employment documentation, and tax records.
So now I can close on my home faster than ever. All from the comfort of my own couch. Who would have thought mortgages could be this easy?
Awesomeness. Look, for over 25 years at Lennar, we've been focused on how technologies can aid us in building a better mousetrap, building a better business. And whether we're celebrating our 65th year or whether the university's business school is celebrating its 70th year, it's wonderful to have milestones and to reflect on the foundation that we've built in the past. But as we pivot to the future, as we aspire to the next 65 years or the next 70 years or the first 100th, it's most important in today's world that we be ever reflective of the world that we live in that is changing so quickly. Find the technologies that can aid in building a better program to carry us forward, because we live in a world where if we don't evolve, we will die. And the home, as we've looked at it and searched for its future, is a good proxy for what we see all the way through our economy, all the way through our government, all the way through our academic world. We have to change. And there are technologies out there that can either be our friend in design or our disruptor and leave us behind. Thank you for your time. Happy to be here today.
Couple of questions.
Questions? Anybody have any questions? Or did I answer them all? Okay, yes? Thank you for being here, Julio.
Yeah. You exceeded expectations.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Miller.
Good morning.
So I know you began the conversation talking about wanting to pivot towards the future of the anniversary in a sense. What of pivoting towards the past and looking backwards and retrospectively in order to innovate? Myself, having been working in the real estate industry for a few years now, I see the trends that are happening in people wanting, you know, more walkability and livability, and all of that is more geared toward the three rules of real estate, right? Location, location, location. And I know that's probably something for a greenfield new home developer building out, you know, out west, that is a little harder to fulfill that urge and that need that people are beginning to have now. And it seems as though those sorts of trends are more people wanting to get back to the roots of how development in this country originally sprang up. You know, having mixed uses, being in more infill locations now. What sorts of measures is Lennar taking in that realm? And I know of one I have seen in a community out west, I can't remember the name of it though, where you have incorporated some live-work units in the community. And you know, I'm just kind of curious as to those sorts of innovations where it's more, not so much about the technology and about the, you know, the little gadgets and things that are in the home, as much as how the home itself functions and how the home is situated within the larger, you know, kind of community as a whole.
Yeah, so that's one of the most important questions that we confront generation to generation, and it's not just about looking backwards, it's very much about looking forward. Many elements of today's millennial generation have begged some of exactly those questions. There are structural components that define some of the answers to these questions, and some of them are aspirational. I fully understand the desire to live in a walkable world because traffic is getting worse and worse, more and more difficult, and it's not fun to have to drive 45 minutes to work, or even a 20 or 30-minute drive to the grocery store just because it's so log-jammed on the road. Walkability is a critically important component to consider. We have about 1,400 communities across the country, and so we span a great deal of those questions. Sometimes we're able to answer, sometimes we're simply not. And I'll tell you the conundrum, because we see it with this generation. The first question that was asked about the millennial generation is, will they have children? Will they be traditionalists? Will they look to settle into a single-family home? Or is the drive inward towards the city core going to be a dominant theme over the next years, over the next decades? Will we have to reconfigure the way that we think about home ownership, or should we become a rental nation? That also was a big driver. So there are some realities embedded in some of this. Each generation, going back decades, each generation has gotten married later and had children later than its past generation. Now, the millennials took it to another level because it's generally slipped 1 or 2 or 3 years with each generation, and it basically tags to life expectancy. Why do I have to rush to get married when I'm going to be living longer? That kind of seems a connected dot. But the extension of that time frame seems to have been exacerbated with the millennial generation by the economic downturn. So economics played a part, and the millennial generation simply didn't start that journey of marriage and childbearing until their 30s. And that just kind of came as a surprise. And during the interim period, the drive towards rent versus own, which is not atypical, prior to marriage and having children, generally people rent. And the migration towards the inner core was driven by that postponement. But what we have also found is that the infrastructure for families, schools, parks, Little League, all of the services, generally, except for like cities like New York City, maybe Chicago, maybe San Francisco, the family infrastructure generally doesn't exist at the inner core. And so the practical awareness that if I'm going to have children, I've got to be in an area where we have the good schools, where we have schools where I want to not only raise my kids and have them go to elementary school, but grow roots so that they grow up with the same friends and families in the neighborhood. That's going to take place more in a suburban setting. So the answer to your question is it stretches or stresses the ability to have walkability as soon as you go from dense, the inner core, to less dense, the outer core. It becomes less walkable just because the distances, the traditional single-family communities, make them harder to make walkable. Our challenge is to integrate higher densities with more commercial activity in some of those areas, and to also have office facilities and workspaces in those areas. And evolutionary trends like WeWork. For those who don't know, it's kind of shared office spaces that facilitate some of the newer businesses that are evolving and growing. Those kinds of programs are enabling us to rethink the suburban lifestyle, where we can take the essence of the inner core and find ways to bring it out to the suburban lifestyle where the infrastructure around schools and parks exists and where people will actually want to build their families as well. The short answer to your question is we're not there yet. It's an evolutionary track. Some of it is just plain planning, and some of it is new technologies that will enable us to incorporate differences into the communities that we build going forward. And we're very focused on that.
Okay, I think we have time for one more quick question, please, and then we'll take the break.
Does that mean my answer has to be quick too? Yes, got it. Okay.
Yes, hi, my name is Christina Slezinska. I have a question going back to your very interesting IT loan application, mortgage application system. I'm an IT, I love it. I'm super interested in it. What I'm also noticing is that sometimes you have to fit your life into boxes so that it can actually provide you with an answer. So the question I have is, we're in a global world. The word global is enshrined into the mission statement of the business school. Miami is increasingly global. There's people from everywhere here. People come here, mid-age, they've had lives elsewhere. They want to come here, they start renting, they want to buy. They don't have credit. They want to apply for a mortgage. So how are you going to be integrating people's past professional lives in different countries into a system here, an IT system, which will take into account the fact that they've had lives before, international lives, and that they may not fit into those boxes, which are US-centric, if I may. And that's fine, it's a huge country. But it's more looking to the future in terms of globalization. How will that work, not only in your business, but also I think in other businesses where IT comes into play?
So that speaks exactly to the issue and the question and what technology enables. Much of our technology initiative is around finding technologists that are working on really good solutions and investing with them and partnering with them and developing some answers. We work with a company called Blend. Blend is all about, you give us your name, you give us some basic information and permission to reach out, and electronically, digitally, we can access verifiable information. The better the distribution of information or the accumulation of information becomes, the more we enable more people to prove that they actually can afford the mortgage they're about to take out. It's the imperfection of information that disables so many people, especially from outside the country, to be able to prove where their income or where their assets are actually embedded. And the ability to verify and understand what people have and their ability to repay a mortgage is going to enhance the ability to open the funnel of approved mortgages, approvals for mortgages that people need in order to enable them to buy a home. And I believe that technology is at the very heart of that verifiable information. And that's what you're going to see as we evolve forward.
All right, thanks a lot. Stuart.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Terrific. Here. One of those. We'll just get a quick photo, and thank you so much for joining us here.
Wait, one more.
One more.
You bet.
All right, thanks so much. We've got a quick social media pop-up interview for 5 minutes, if
No
that's
problem.
okay. But
Testing 1 2. Testing